Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gig Member Q&A call. Today is Tuesday, April the 23rd, and I'm your host, Scott Massey. Welcome to today's show. Thrilled to have you with us as we dive into what no doubt is going to be a very exciting session, all aimed at making your 2024 golf season the best one yet. As I think you know, if you saw from the promos, we're switching things up a little bit today, and we're fortunate to actually have James as our guest. And what we're going to be doing today is exploring the top 10 questions that we think every manager in our industry should be considering as we head into the 2024 golf season in most parts of the world. And what we're going to be doing is talking about some of the best tips and strategies ranging from leadership to empathy to refining your operational tactics with James, things that he's learned along the way in his journey, kind of what we think are the top 10 things from gurus that we think you should be focusing on as we head towards 2024. And they're all designed to enhance your club's success. So, you know, whether you're tuning in live or you're tuning in later on the Q&A call archive, get ready for a session that is going to be jam-packed with great ideas, best practices, strategies that you can take away today and use at your club right away. So, James, welcome to the show officially. And I guess maybe before we get started, why don't we just sort of jump off and kick things off with a question for you. Where do you kind of see the state of the golf industry today, on April the 23rd?
Well, thanks, Scott. And it seems a little weird because here I am, like on the other side of the table. The sun is coming through Gig headquarters here, shining off my bald head. And so that means for me in North Vancouver, British Columbia, that the golf season's upon us. So I have no doubt that here in certainly BC, we've got golf courses that are opening. I know we've got Gig members all over the country that are opening up their golf course in Canada. We've got Gig members in Australia that are finishing their season and moving into a quieter time pretty soon. We've got Gig members in Asia that different parts of the world. So it's, we did this, I think a year and a half ago, Scott, maybe. Yeah, I think we did this. We kind of switched it up and I'm thrilled to be here. And look, if you've got some questions, please put them in the chat box and I'll do my very best to answer them. But to get started, Scott, let's just talk about as we're moving now into the 2024 year, hey, does anyone have any concerns that viewership in golf is down by 20% on television? You look at the Masters, you look at the disagreements that are going on between Live Golf and the PGA. You talk about rolling back the golf ball. As I've said before in public, only the golf industry will find a way to screw up a great thing because 2023 was a banner year. Many people, many areas in the world reported, that it was the best year ever for rounds of golf. And in North America, fundamentally 23%, Scott, rounds of golf ahead of where they were pre-COVID, so to speak. Last year in the surveys that are done through owners and operators and various different types of clubs by various different groups, whether it's the NGCAA US or the NGCAA Canada or the National Golf Foundation or Golf Data Tech or other bodies around the world, they report a handful of things. And the key thing I thought that was very interesting was, here's the stats that I kind of pulled out of that stuff. As I said, 23% rounds of golf we're still trending above pre-COVID times. Revenue in 2023 was 7% higher than it was in 2022. But here's fast, 96% of clubs that responded to surveys, Scott, in North America indicated that they had increased their rates again in 2024. Now, we all know things are more expensive. We all know that costs are going up, labor's going up, everything's going up. So I understand all of that, but we have concerns that the consumer is going to start making choices about doing other things. And I'm going to talk a lot today, Scott, about various gurus that we've been fortunate to connect with in the last 12 months because, I like to say I know nothing. I'm just a regurgitator of content that I learned from so many smart, brilliant people. And the first one I'll talk about is our good friend John Last of Sports and Leisure Research Data that does surveys for the PGA Tour, for the USGA, for the NGCAA United States, NGCAA Canada. This man and his organization does a lot of great work. And if you were in Montreal last November and watching his session along with Moneris, the fellow from Moneris, great guy. Well, they had some scary stats, Scott, about the level of debt that was consuming North Americans, the level of spending that North Americans were going to start having restricted to spend on leisure activities. They talked about the trends of the rich get richer and the poor stay poorer. And so there are a certain marketplace that's going to spend money on luxury things, but they now have they're getting back to baseball games. They're getting back to trips. They're getting back to going to Europe. They're getting back to getting outside their bubble. So there are some signs, that are a little bit concerning, but there's lots of positives too. 52% of private clubs, Scott, in North America had a waiting list as of the end of this past season, compared to 39% in 2021, just a couple years previous. So waiting lists have still been increasing. I love this stat that of the 40 million US golfers, 16 million of them only play screen golf, right? But as I mentioned, there are concerns. 60% of owners surveyed in North America are concerned that we're pushing rates too high. And only 20% of owners, operators, GMs believe that this growth is going to continue. So not to be a glass half empty kind of person or a glass half full kind of person. The other stat that's really concerning, and you're reading a lot about this right now, Scott, is that I can't remember what the stat was. I want to say there's 22 or 24 golf courses being built in the United States right now, which considering a few years ago was almost zero.
Yeah.
But the golf courses that are closing are inexpensive, municipal-based, recreation golfer kind of access. Being, the golf course being built are obviously, ego projects or real estate projects, or they're a resort that's of 6 golf courses that's adding another golf course. But we should be concerned a little bit about some concerns about that access, and then also about, just as I said, the price of golf. So, it's the glass half full, glass half empty, depends how you want to look at it. But I think that 2024, in my humble opinion, is going to be a very critical year for managers, operators, owners, GMs to tighten down. I have this saying, Scott, that if you were broken before COVID, you're still broken, right? Yeah. So if you've experienced 23% growth at your facility and you have done nothing different since what you were doing in 2017, 18, 19, then guess what? All of a sudden, you didn't become a brilliant marketer, a brilliant salesperson, a brilliant, delivery of experience. Like, in all due respect, right? I mean, other forces have drastically changed the landscape of the golf industry. We used to talk about discounting and half price in Golf Now, and now we're talking about how much can I push my dollar per customer up, past $100, whatever it is. So I think, as always, the smart operators, the good operators, the smart managers, just like the people that we deal with all the time, those clubs that join gig are the ones that are always trying to get better and learn more, even if they just get a little nugget every once in a while that helps their business. They think that's time well spent. So I think we're going to talk about today kind of 10 topics, 10 questions that when I look back at the gurus I've talked to, I've been, Scott, I've spoken in everywhere from Halifax to Montreal to Spain to Palm Springs to wherever in the past 12 months. And I've listened and learned from a lot of smart people. And so these are my tidbits for the audience to hopefully make 2024 or 2024-25, whatever your season is, the best season ever.
Okay, awesome. Now, like you said, we've got 10 great questions that we want the audience to start asking themselves as we head, into the 2024 season. Before we get to those, you talked a lot about the industry there. I'm going to put you on the spot. It seems like, we've been riding this wave. COVID's ended. Apparently, maybe not. I got a text yesterday that a vaccine's available for me if I want it, but I thought COVID was over. We've been thinking about maybe things are going to start going backwards. They haven't. Is 2024 the year where they do go backwards? Do we continue to grow? Do we go flat? Do we go backwards? Like, what's your prediction for, the industry as a whole this year? Is it bound to happen or no?
Global warming, forest fires, hurricanes, recession,
a lot of factors.
Politics, viewership. Like, if you are a betting person, I would not be building a budget that's got a 15% growth. I would not be going to my owner and saying, we're going to kill it out of the park. Now, it depends. It depends on where you're at. It depends on whether or not you're full. It depends on whether or not you've got flexibility. It depends on whether or not you have a facility that's got price elasticity that you can maximize and improve your bottom line. If if you just get one more golfer to buy a hot dog every hour, you can put $30,000 to the bottom line. So, I mean, there's no shortage of ways to grow our business, to grow our revenue. If your question is, do I think that we're going to be talking next year about this year being the biggest year ever for rounds of golf? Man, I don't think so.
It's tough.
I think if we're flat, then, fantastic. Like,
that's a win. Yeah.
And I think some early signals of the operators that I talked to, Scott, there's some facilities that are a little bit loose, a little bit light right now in their annual bookings. There's also some facilities that are rocking it. So, I mean, I really think it depends on where you are, and it depends on the type of golf course that you have.
No, well said. All right, well, let's dive into these questions. We'll bring them up one at a time and share the question with the audience that they should be asking themselves, and then we'll let you dive deep on each one. So first one up here, the question is, what is it that makes your academy, restaurant, golf course, special, different from the others?
Yeah, and I'm actually going off the board to not pick a gig guru because I'm going to use the brilliant, inspirational. If you don't follow anyone on social media, the one person you should follow is Simon Sinek.
Yeah, I love him.
Right. And literally every time my feed comes up, there's another video of him talking about starting with why. But let's apply it to us, okay? If there's one thing I've learned, those golf courses, those managers, those teachers, golf instructors, those retailers, those restaurants, they are very clear about what makes them special, what their value proposition is, what their purpose is, what their why is. Why choose me over to you, over someone else? Why come to my facility, whether it's conditioning, whether it's the quality of the service, whether it's we have fun, whether it's we treat you like you're a private club member at a public club golf course. Like, it doesn't matter what your it does matter, but as long as you're clear and you've clearly identified what your values are, what your value proposition is, what your promise to your customers are, what your promise is to your staff, what your promise is to yourself. What kind of manager am I? I decided from the very beginning, learning from brilliant people like Jim McLaughlin and others, that I was going to get a job if I convinced the owner that I was a golf guy that understood numbers, that I was financially smart. Because you know what they assumed? They assumed I was a golf guy that wanted to play golf 6 days a week. And they don't want a golf guy running their $4 million, $7 million, $20 million business, right? That is because you play golf 6 days a week, right? So what is your, as someone just said in our chat bot, thank you, Colin, your USP? What is your unique selling proposition, right? And there's no shortage of content from Andrew Wood to Simon Sinek to everybody else that talks about what is your unique feature. So writing that down, having a conversation, making sure it's in your materials, making sure it's on your website, making sure it's the first thing someone says when you pick up the phone. Hi, everyone, welcome. It's a great day at XYZ Golf Club. If you've never played golf before, we'd love to talk to you. Whatever is your thing, you got to be really clear about that. So I think that's number one, Scott, because if you don't have clarity around what makes you special, how are you going to differentiate when the consumer has a chance to make a decision? And we talk about, let's talk about picking a private club. I'm going to Florida in a couple of weeks, Scott, and I'm gonna go to Naples, Florida, to talk to membership directors where literally there are hundreds of clubs within 100 miles, like hundreds. Yep. And why would Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who just retired to Naples, Florida, choose XYZ Golf Club over ABC Golf Club? And how have you communicated that message? So that's number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a core principle of any business, right? Give people a compelling reason to choose you over the other options they have, right? It's a valuable one right off the top.
And I'll just finish off by saying, and we're going to run out of time already, I can tell for 10 minutes. I would say that if you're a young manager, if you're a department head, if you're an experienced, seasoned operator, are you clear about what your unique features are as a manager? Do you have your own values about what it's like to work for you? What you promise your board, your owner, your employees, your boss? Doesn't matter where you are in the food chain.
Yeah.
Are you very clear about what your skill sets are and what your values are? Okay.
Yeah, well said. Okay, number two. So the next question we want you to ask yourself, how can I show my coworkers that I care about them?
Well, Scott, we just had this wonderful guest on, Monique Lanneman Bovenkamp, the chief empathy officer, from the Netherlands and who was formerly the chief empathy officer for the South African PGA. Yeah. We just had a podcast with her, actually a live Q&A call with her just the last month. And Monique, and there's so much material that she's got and so much stuff on our gig platform that talks about this, but And once again, Simon Sinek has a video about it, about working with Gen Zs. And, this is where people are at right now. They need you to know that you care about them and that they're not just there to do a task, right? And it just, the empathy and the challenge, one of the things Monique talked about was, if I'm empathetic to my staff, does that mean I'm soft? How do I have hard conversations and fire bad performers and also tell people I love them and I care about them, right? So if you listen to that podcast with Monique, she'll share a bunch of best practices about how to show your coworkers that you care about them. But, the most basic one, as we talk about, is just asking people, how are you and what can I do to help you? If you just say that 10 times a day, if you're a manager, how are you and do you need any help? Do you have what you need? Is there anything I can do to help you? Is there anything I can do to help you do your job better, have more fun, get more balance, enjoy your work more, deal with a difficult situation? Just asking people to do that. And one of the things that I, like to talk about, Scott, is that every individual, including ourselves, right? We all look at things with what's our ROI. Like as human beings, we're naturally, for survival, we have to be selfish every once in a while. And we have to be clear about what am I getting for my time to do this? And so if you manage people, then be understanding what is that person's ROI, because it'll be different, right? If you got 10 employees, one person's there to keep their time busy and stay away from the house. One person's there to raise money for school. One person's there because they love golf. One person's there because they love people. One person's there because whatever, right? They all have different ROIs. And if you manage people understanding what their ROI is, I think, is critical in an effort to then figure out, how can I care about you? How can I help you achieve your ROI?
Yeah, well said. I think about Greg Patterson too, and his saying, paper at home, people at the club, right? So not being in your office all day, panning out emails and stuff like that, but being on the floor, being with your team, helping, deliver the guest experience. I think that goes a long way to show coworkers that you care about them as well.
Yeah, Greg. I mean, Scott, what's the course that we have with Greg on our leadership webinar series? Is it about love? It's like,
when loving enough, is that the one?
Loving enough.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So sorry if I forgot the name of it, but yeah, when loving enough, it's pretty good.
All right. So as you said, we're tight on time already. Let's bounce to number 3. Number 3 question we wanted to ask yourself: how can I make my team, department, or myself better?
Yeah, and I'm going to give credit to this one to our own work, at Kronk Group, right? Because the reality is that, hey, the Canucks are going to win the Stanley Cup, Scott. I don't know if anybody else out there has, I know we've got some Leaf fans online. Yeah. I know we've got some Oilers fans online, right? We've got lots of different fans online in the hockey world. But I don't understand why we totally understand when a team removes a player and gets a better player, makes a trade to improve their team, finds someone else that's a better fit, gets rid of someone that's a bad fit, that doesn't fit with the coach, that doesn't fit with the philosophy of the team, that doesn't have the same motivation, or that doesn't have the same desire to win. In sports teams, it happens every day, and we completely accept it.
Yeah.
Yet when we look at our own business and we look at our own team, man, Scott, in my 18 years, I've been consulting with facilities, and I have never not been surprised by the fact that someone is still working for that business, that club. And the first thing I say is, that person seems like they really shouldn't be on the team. How come they're still here? Yeah, well, don't want to have a difficult conversation. It's going to cost us a lot to get rid of them. We're working on them. Oh yeah, what are you doing? Have you got clear, defined goals and objectives and KPIs? Are you following up them every week? Do you have monthly meetings? Do you have conversations? Have you written them up for being late 3 times? I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And what happens is a poor functioning team just stays poor and dysfunctioning, right? We have to have a critical eye. That's what we're paid to do. If you want to improve, if you want to win, if you want your club to succeed, if you want your career to succeed, my humble advice is to learn to look at every single area and thing that you do and say, how can I do it better? And look, Scott, I could give you 20 things in my own personal life that I could do better. Okay. And every day we wake up and we think to ourselves, I'm going to get on that Peloton. Okay. One more time or whatever. Okay. But it doesn't mean that we stop thinking about it. It doesn't mean we give up. We just have to keep striving, keep trying. And that's a question that we need to ask ourselves. And by the way, that question should be on the agenda of every meeting that you have with your managers every time you meet. How can we be better?
Yeah, and I think one of the aspects of this one too is how, if there is that poor performer that is still on the team, how do the rock stars in your team view that? How do they view you, allowing that to continue to happen, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And winners don't want to work with losers. Right. So if you have a handful of losers on your team, or you have toxic people on your team, you have to get rid of them, because good people that want to succeed and win, will not want to work with people like that eventually or immediately, like whatever way you want to look at it. Yeah. But at some point they're going to say, this is not, I'm not vibing. I'm not progressing. Like if you got a winger on your team that never passes the puck, the goal scorer is eventually going to say, get me a new winger. because the role, everyone's got a role, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I mean, if you don't care enough to do something about that person, they see that, and if they think that you don't care enough about the business, then why should they? And that ultimately comes out in the way they take care of the members and guests of the club, right? So, there's so many different layers to that one, and there's also a lot of different ways that you can make your team, department, yourself better, which we'll get into in some future questions here, I think, right?
And this doesn't mean that we treat people poorly, or we fire people wrong, or we don't follow the law, or we don't do a bunch of other things. But in the club business, in the golf business, where we are fundamentally having fun and we're not saving lives and we're not building rocket ships, we tend to have a very soft opinion about dealing with conflict. We tend to believe that our job is to rah everybody every day. And you have to balance that off with, no, we're not achieving our goals. We're not delivering excellent experiences every single day. And that's not a negative. It's just like, how do we do it here?
Yeah. Colin taking full advantage of the chat, which I love. So encourage everybody to do that. He sums it up well here, right? Those toxic team members must be extracted, because eventually the talented people will leave because of them.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So moving along to number 4 here. James, you talked about leadership and making sure that, team members have all the tools that they need to succeed in their job. So this question ties right into that. Do your team members have the skills, knowledge, tools to be the best that they can be, in their role at the club?
Yeah, and I'm harking back, Scott, to our Q&A call from a couple months ago, or a few months ago, with Whitney Reed-Pinnell and RCS Hospitality Group, a wonderful, amazing training organization out of the United States that works with so many different types of clubs, and Whitney's got so much experience in that thing. And one of the things we talked about was the importance of onboarding, like getting it right from the very beginning, right? Yeah. And onboarding people. And let's just extrapolate that out, because we have other gurus, whether it's Robert Surechi or Colin Burns or Greg Patterson, that also talk about onboarding boards of directors, like onboarding your directors, onboarding your president. Like, it doesn't matter who we're talking about. And to be honest, sometimes it's often onboarding new members or onboarding new customers. Like, if you have a new member, Melissa Hansen would talk about this. What is the onboarding experience that lets them know, here's what you're supposed to do with this, here's how this works? Oh yeah, this isn't really written in the new member handbook, but just so you know, Mother's Day sells out in the first 5 minutes it goes online, or whatever it might be, right? Whatever those intricacies of onboarding. So I think, that question of, do our team members, if we're not achieving our goals, right, and we're a leader, if we're a manager, we're a leader, well, there's no shortage of books that will tell you that you're responsible, right? So if I'm the leader of the business and my business is not achieving all it can achieve, I'm paid, hopefully, to be responsible. I am accountable. So therefore, I have to ask myself, if my team is not performing, have I trained them properly? Have I given them the skills? Have I given them the motivation? Are they clear about what their goals are, what their tasks are? Are they clear about what's expected of them? Do they have the tools they need to perform their job? And it's not perfect. The answer can never be yes, 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 and yes, because that's not life. That's not realistic. But let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it. And do we have training videos? I mean, Scott, that's our lives now is consumed by creating content that helps managers train their staff easier.
Yeah.
Because who can find the time to spend 2 hours showing a brand new person on the beverage cart how to do inventory, or how to stocks, or how to drive around the right way, or whatever it might be, right? So we build a beverage cart training video that hopefully is going to cover 80% of all the things that person needs to know, right? So that it makes it easier. So do we have those training? Do we have a script? When the person answers the phone, do they have a script? When someone walks in the golf shop and says, it just took me 5.5 hours to play, I want my money back. Do we have a clear policy script response that young 20-year-old that just started working last week is able to deal with that 60-year-old person yelling at them? And are they clear about what they can do, what they can't do, who they're going to call, what the process is, right? Do they have a script? So, and then lastly, from an onboarding standpoint, it's got in that question, and you and I have talked about this at great length, and we've learned this now, the importance of digital sign-off of training of employees, right? We have to hold people accountable. I was helping a club last year. It was the end of the year, and 25% of the employees hadn't signed off on the team handbook that says, I will not steal. I mean, you can't start work unless you sign that document. Like, I mean, it's our job to follow these things through. So, onboarding, training, scripts, that to me is critical.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're all about, obviously, at Gig, is, helping clubs do better with providing their team members with the skills, the knowledge, the tools to be successful. Again, Colin in the chat says, team leaders need to set their team members up for success. This is a hard one for clubs. I don't know if it's because of the seasonality of our business or, exactly what it is, but I think that it's a great question to ask yourself. If you're a club manager, you're a department head, you're a supervisor, are we doing everything we can to give our team members the skills, knowledge, tools they need to be successful in their roles? And maybe you don't go from 1 to 100 in one season, but if you're constantly taking steps towards that end goal of having that ultimate onboarding process, I think that's great. I mean, it's those initial days, setting yourself up for a positive relationship long term. That's what it's all about, right?
You and I both know the answer to this question, Scott. And how is it that a facility feels it's okay to spend $35,000 on fixing a bunker or putting in new sand, and they can't, and they're not comfortable spending a few $1,000s training their staff? And I'm not talking about gig. I'm just talking about training budgets.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. This has been proven by experts over the years. The club industry in general, the amount of dollars that are allocated to staff development and training is at a percentage that is drastically lower than any other hospitality business, that a hotel business, a restaurant business. And I know, we get it, time, effort. Like you say, the seasonality, all of a sudden you go from 0 to 100, you open the doors, all of a sudden 200 golfers. There's lots of excuses. There's lots of reasons why it's difficult, but it's so critically important.
No, well said. Well said. All right, number 5. Are we growing our list of loyal customers? And is this a database thing or social media thing? Where exactly are you going with this question? What do you want the audience to be thinking about when they ask themselves this question?
It's about creating relationships with our customers and our employees. So if you just go back to a decade ago, okay, just go back pre-COVID, when we were desperate to get people to come on our doors, our golf courses. We were pricing, discounting. We were, buying lists. We were doing all kinds of things to get people to come to get to our golf course. So let's just hypothetically say you now have 23% more people, or you got 23% more rounds, hypothetically, coming to your facility. Or you've got 15% more people whacking balls in your driving range, or you've got 10% more foot traffic in your restaurant. If you are worried in any way, shape, or form that possibly we might get pulled backwards in the next few years, those facilities that create relationships with their guests and their customers and their members and their staff will have a greater success when the times get tough down the road, simply put. Yeah. So retention, getting people involved in leagues, getting people involved in programs, getting to know people's children, getting children involved in programs, understanding that person's ROI, having a relationship with that person, making sure that all the employees know that Mr. Smith likes his coffee black and Mrs. Jones likes her tea with milk and sugar. So that when they come for the 17th time that month, the brand new employee has been taught and trained to not say, how would you like your coffee, but to look on the POS system to say that he likes his coffee black and she likes it with milk and sugar, or whatever, however you do it. But creating relationships, asking those questions. How's your summer been? How was your round? When's the last time you were here? When are you coming back next? Do you know about our Mother's Day? Are your kids involved in our junior program? Do you need some new grips on your clubs? I mean, it's like dating, Scott. It's like the number of ways you can date someone into a pickup line is endless. So does your staff does your staff have a list of pickup lines that is going to create this retention with your guests? Because I think that's really, really critical. And it's going to be those facilities that are strong when the times get tough, have developed relationships and loyalty with their guests, right? And a very, very important. And you know, the ability for getting one more dollar out of one customer as opposed to going to find a brand new customer. Once again, you know, the studies go on and on and on and on and on, but it's critically important. So do we have that list? Are we getting emails? Are we getting content? Are we sending texts? Are we using, whether it's Gallus Golf, whether it's Members First, whether it's Notify? I mean, whether it's Lightspeed, the technology is out there. Chrono Golf. The technology is out there, left, right, and center, for you to do nothing to build your database and then to dissect your database, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Love it. Love it. All right, moving right along. Number 6, how can we create more FOMO? So fear of missing out. Dive into that one for us. Let us know what you're thinking here. What do we want to accomplish by asking ourselves this question as club managers?
Well, I would say that a couple recommendations. Number 1 is follow Melissa Hansen. So if you don't know Melissa Hansen, she's one of our gurus. She's brilliant. She's about membership. She's about clubs, private clubs, but her lessons are applicable to any organization, 100%. Number 1. Number 2 is, I can't tell you the number of sessions that I have sat in at conferences around the world where clubs talk about how they have diversified their revenue options, how they have diversified their ways to bring people to their facility to create more than just a golf course. Okay, so whether it's a farmer's market, whether it's yoga classes, whether it is walking through the trees and looking for birds, whether it is having a paint class on Tuesday nights or a wine Wednesday, like, it doesn't matter what it is, but your event calendar, your event calendar needs to be chock-a-block from all season long. Once again, it creates that loyalty, creates that retention, gets people to come in. And you know, as I heard someone say, it's not about growing golf, it's about growing your community. To get people to want to look at the fact that, hey, ABC Club is not just a golf course. Yes, it's a golf course, but it's also a restaurant. It's also where my kids go to exercise. It's also where they have yoga class, or we have a book reading club, or there's a food truck on Thursdays. Like, the list goes on and on and on, right? And so creating that FOMO, and then, you know, the only suggestion I would have for you, I'd share with you about how to create FOMO, is to simply get your staff to be first of all, to know. So make sure all your staff knows what's on the event calendar, and then to trigger them about saying to the guest, are you signed up for Mother's Day brunch next week? Number 1. So that's step number 1. Every table you go to, Susie, Billy, every table you go to, can you please ask them if they're registered for Mother's Day brunch? Okay, I can do that. Have you gone to Mother's Day brunch? Okay, great. Step number 1. Step number 2 is, After Mother's Day brunch, their job is to say, did you go to Mother's Day brunch? If the answer is yes, how'd you enjoy it? How was it? Was it great? Was it everything okay? Could we do anything better? Number one. If the answer is no, we didn't, then your answer is, oh, that's too bad. It was so good. It was fantastic. We had flowers, we had chocolates. You know, there was a bunny running around handing out eggs. Santa came in on a sleigh and a helicopter. Like, whatever you're doing to create FOMO at your events has to be talked about by the staff as well as by the guests, and in every department, by the way. So FOMO, you know, you create FOMO through various different, putting pictures up on your website, showing all the activities afterwards, putting it in the newsletter. If you missed out this year at the annual charity 9-hole golf event, it's sold out in 10 minutes. Make sure here's the date for next year. Tickets go on sale on January 1st, whatever is your thing, right? But FOMO is a strategy. I want to give an example, Scott, of one of the things that we used to do at the golf course we used to manage. And it was the simplest little exercise. It's called Shot of the Day, okay? And you know this, we did it, right? But you give your marshal, your ambassador, a coupon for a free plate of nachos. And once a day, once a shift, when they're driving around and they see a golfer do anything, hit it over the ladies' tee, hit it out of the water, make an eagle, make a long putt. It doesn't have to be the best shot of the day. It is just the shot of the day. And they go up to that golfer because the golfer is going to be freaking out because the marshal's coming to see them. And normally they're coming to yell at them about their pace of play. But no, instead, the marshal says, that was the best shot I've seen today. You have earned, Mrs. Smith, the shot of the day. You get to take your group into the restaurant today and get a free plate of nachos. And she is going to go to the restaurant afterwards with a free plate of nachos, and they're going to buy 9 gallons of wine, and they're going to buy some burgers and some salads and some other food. And then they're going to tell everybody and all their friends that they got shot of the day. And it costs you $4 in taco chips, right? So whatever those things are that create that FOMO, that kind of conversation, you know, people will start to say, like, I hope I get. We used to have people that came in the golf course weeks later and say, I hope I get the shot of the day. Or they would say, James, where's the marshal? He missed my shot of the day today. And I'd say, Bill, don't worry about it. Next time. We'll get you next time. Right? So you can create FOMO.
Yeah, I think two things. One is social media. You know, we've got this tool today that we didn't have 10 years ago or thereabouts. That's a great way for clubs to, you know, share all those events that you talked about that are happening at the club with their audience, right? So, you know, just a great vehicle to, you know, whether it's, you know, drive members to the club to participate in these events, or, you know, get, you know, public playing golfers to your club to book a tee time as opposed to, you know, other clubs. Those Instagram reels, those TikTok videos, you know, a really powerful tool to create that FOMO. I do want to ask you one question though. You know, you talked about getting the server to, you know, talk up those events, you know, with the members and guests of the club. We've got people in our audience that are like, James, like, I can't even get people to show up for their shifts. Like, if I can't get them to be here just to work, how do I get them to do that? So, you know, I know we're short on time here, but is there anything that you can share with the audience that might help them, you know, get the staff to actually, you know, go above and beyond and engage, you know, with the member or guest like that, as opposed to just, you know, hey, how do you like your coffee?
Sure. If you don't have an employee culture that celebrates your employees, they're not going to celebrate things for your customers. Yeah. So if you better put on your staff party as well as you put on your member final event party or your Christmas party, because your staff, if they believe that you have a culture of creating great events, you have to treat them as just, they're another version of a customer.
Yeah, the internal customer.
So my complicated answer, Scott, to your simple question is just that you're right. If you don't have people that are buying into the culture about what you do, that don't think it's a great place to work, they're not going to think it's a great place to go for your anniversary dinner.
Yeah.
So your team has to believe that you, and you have to live it, that you care about everyone's experience, and that includes putting on a great staff event.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think there's, now that you say that, I think about programs that, clubs run, like, the Ultimate Host Award, where the team members are looking for those, guest experiences that are being delivered by their colleagues at such a high level. And, the idea programs where the team members are giving input on how to improve the business. You start doing all those things, and, I guess that's when they probably start talking up the Mother's Day brunch or whatever it is at the table in the restaurant, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, moving along, because as I keep saying, we're short on time. Number 7, how can we use technology to increase efficiencies at the club?
Well, if you, speaking of technology, my Google just heard you say that question and just started answering that question in the background. So I apologize.
They're always listening, James.
Hey, Google, turn off. Exactly. Don't use technology. That's my recommendation. Yeah. No. Well, Scott, we were joking, of course, because last month or whatever, a month and a half ago, I was speaking in Spain, and Scott put together a video of me speaking in Spanish in Spain. And of course, I don't speak Spanish, but the reality is that with a push of a button, we can create a training program in any language, right? And now I almost don't do anything without using ChatGPT, without helping flesh things out, without learning about, what are some to make our lives more efficient, right? So the example that I've used, and we went to a great session with Jason Wilson from Gallus Golf that gave a session on technology, AI, and ChatGPT here in the Lower Mainland, and I gave a presentation in Alberta to some managers and operators about it. There's so many things you can do. It's overwhelming, but there are so many ways to use technology to help you be more efficient and effective, right? Whether it's drafting a newsletter, first giving ChatGPT some parameters. The best practices that I would tell you is a couple things. Number one is try to use, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? So the more information you give ChatGPT to be clear about what is going to be said and who you are and what you're writing for and what your objective is, the better the information is going to come out, right? Yeah. And then also to be very careful about how you use it, because if you get an email of complaint from a member, and your marketing person decides to tell ChatGPT to write a response and then just hit send, and it's not personalized and it's written from a computer and it's a robot wrote it, well, you're going to cause yourself more trouble than you were using in the first place. So you got to be really careful about how to use it. You got to make sure that you check everything, but it's just incredibly easy. We could do an entire session, Scott, on technology, on how to use it for training, on how to use it for creating content, on how to use it to create posters and art. I mean, my goodness, if there's no longer the days of spending $30,000 on, designers and marketing people to make content for posters and things, when you can use DALL-E and Canva Plus, right? It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, and it's moving so fast, But like you said with ChatGPT, if you can use it to, I guess it goes with Chat Guru too, right? Inside a gig. But if you can use it to kind of get 70% of the way there, and then you go in after, fine tune it, revise it, finish it off, it definitely makes you more efficient, definitely gets you to the finish line faster and on to the next task, right? So it's huge.
And in addition, just lastly, is to just to educate yourself on what it is and how it's developing and growing. Like, even if you're not comfortable maybe using it every day, just make sure you stay on top of how it's growing and how it's going, because that is the future of how content is going to be generated. Yeah,
for sure. All right, number 8. Ask yourself, does every employee feel important at least once per week? So,
yeah, so
stand on that for us.
Yeah, in a desire to be efficient, I'm going to give a few very quick examples. First of all, 3 and Jackie Carpenter, People's First. Read that book. Visit Gig platform. You'll see a bunch of articles. Follow them. They're fantastic about this whole topic. Number one. Number two is, we talk about formal recognition and informal recognition. And we've always talked about the importance of recognizing acts as opposed to people, right? Yeah. So it is not about, Susie is the employee of the month. It's that Susie did this that exceeded the guest's expectations, which is why we're recognizing her for employee of the month. Right. Not because it's her turn, Right. And then, little things, right? You can do little things. You talk about creating a culture, Scott. A couple of years ago, we managed a golf course in a place that got very hot in the summertime. Once every couple months, I would organize an ice cream truck to show up and to give all the staff free ice cream and popsicles. And for $250, it was just something that made the staff realize that we were thinking of them and that we were aware that they're working their buns off in very hot weather, right? So little things. And then I'll just give my great, this is my favorite example, Scott, that we used to do, which was, finding out fun ways to celebrate staff ideas and suggestions, right? So the one example is the best idea contest. You get your team to come up with a great idea that's going to improve the business or improve the employee experience or improve the customer experience. And they would get a prize. But mostly what they got is we took the parking stall right by the clubhouse. We took down the sign that said, this is where the general manager parks. And instead we put up a sign that was a light bulb. Yep. It was a picture of a light bulb. And the person that had the best idea got to park in that parking spot. But that wasn't the best part. The best part was that customers and members would come in every day and say, why do you have a signpost with a light bulb on it in the parking lot? And we got to say, well, that's our best idea contest. And then they would say, who's got the best idea and what is it? And so you were constantly reinforcing that you wanted to be better, that you celebrated improvement, that you wanted your staff's involvement, that you recognized your staff for their contribution. I mean, I don't know if we've come up with a better one than the best idea contest, besides to become a GM for a day, but that's for another day.
That's another story. No, good stuff. All right, number 9, are there opportunities for us to improve product quality and consistency? So that's that discerning eye that, we want you to have on the business that I think this question is trying to uncover.
Well, it is, but here's the word. The word is value.
Okay.
So we have to make sure that we don't think like, okay, if your golf course charged $90 5 years ago, and now you're charging $140, obviously it's because of demand, I would assume, unless you've all of a sudden redone your golf course, okay? It's demand. So does the consumer think that I was getting the most unbelievable deal at $90 and now I'm paying the appropriate amount at $140? No, they don't.
No chance.
No, they don't. They're making all kinds of different decisions because we don't sell a widget. We don't sell gasoline. We don't sell milk. We sell an experience. So what is the value? And are you constantly investing in ensuring that you're providing value for dollar for every single area? Is the hot dog quality, the bun quality fresh? Is the greens in great condition? Is there ice in the buckets in the golf carts? Et cetera, onwards and onwards and onwards, right? Are you delivering value? Because when things start to even out, those facilities that aren't providing value will be the ones that will suffer.
Love it. Good stuff. All right. Number 10, where can we increase revenues? And so, you touched on it earlier, one more hot dog an hour. I don't know if it is 30,000 the bottom line or not, but those little things do add up in a big way. So let's talk a little bit about asking ourselves this question: where can we increase revenues?
Yeah, I mean, well, the reason why I put that in there, Scott, is because we also have to remember, whether you're running a private club or you're running a for-profit facility or a resort that sells real estate or a resort that sells vacation rooms, we are in the business of golf. And if we're a manager, our job is to make money. Okay. Now, it might be to break even. It might be to make enough money so that we can replace the irrigation system in 5 years. It might be because we got to make enough money so that if we lose 10 of our members because they die off and we don't replace them with young members, we still have enough dues every month to pay the bills. Whatever is your valuation, we are still in the money-making business. And now is the time to make money, right? You have to. Now, I am not contradicting. I don't want to contradict myself, because there's a difference between overcharging and finding new ways to increase revenues, right? And we always, Scott, when's the last time you got in a golf shop and someone has offered to sell you a dozen balls? I can tell you, it's probably been never. When's the last time I've gone to a golf shop?
Right?
Yeah. When's the last time someone's come up to me and said, "Are you guys ready for dessert?" If I was in a retail restaurant on on Robson Street, they're going to do it every day. If I'm in a golf course, they're going to say, "Thanks so much. Is it separate checks?" I'm being critical, but I'm just saying in general, we leave money on the table left, right, and center. So we have to diversify. We have to find different ways to find revenues. We've got to find different pricing strategies. We've got, sometimes we're leaving money on the table. Sometimes we're not offering a premium enough product that people are willing to pay for. Maybe if you bundle in the lunch, the dinner, the loaded beverage cart, the personal caddy, and the pickup from the hotel, someone will pay you $500 a round of golf for that experience. Because there's lots of people out there, as I said, the rich are going to spend their money on these kind of experiences, and the rest of us are going to be struggling to decide how we spend our discretionary dollar.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt there's those obviously big picture opportunities, that we plan well in advance for to grow the business, but also to empowering those frontline team members to look for those ways to upsell and generate those incremental revenues. They can, like I said before, make a huge difference to the bottom line as well. So get those programs in place, find those ways to incentivize those frontline team members, make it fun for them, make sure there's rewards for them to do it, and those little things will stack up and make a big difference. There's no doubt about it.
Sharing the results. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I got a bonus question.
No, I know. That's what I was going to say. Even though it says number 10, we've got a bonus question, which is ask yourself, what are you personally doing to grow the game?
Scott, one of my favorite podcasts we did this year was with Nacho Geraldo from San Francisco, who personally is, he's not in the golf business, but he's very involved in something called Park Golf, which is literally creating free open golf spaces in a public park in a safe way, right? It's an unbelievable endeavor. Invite you to look at the website. But I watched his presentation when I was at the Golf Inc. Summit last fall, and he had a stat on the screen from the National Golf Foundation that freaked me out, and I'd never seen it presented that way, which is, roughly speaking, that if both parents of a child play golf, that child has a 1 in 4 chance of becoming a golfer at some point. If one parent plays golf on a regular basis, that child has a 1 in 8 chance of becoming a golfer. And if neither one of their parents play golf, they have a 1 in 250 chance of playing golf. And I would propose to you, Scott, that our golfing demographic, we know this, is getting older. That immigration that's coming to various different countries comes from countries where golf is not accessible to them in general. And so they often are not golfers. And so if you're 30 years old and you want to work in the golf business for the next 60 years, what are you doing personally to grow the game of golf? Because your future customer is right now choosing baseball, choosing soccer, choosing a whole bunch of things. It's not got a golf club and a golf ball in their hand. And so that's our opportunity.
Is there any programs or anything in particular that you think that, club managers, should be looking to or focusing on? I mean, we hear about like Operation 36 and things like that. Any thoughts on that?
It doesn't matter. Take your pick. Take a kid to the course week, Operation 36. I mean, there are fantastic. Look, the problem is that I can't put 4 10-year-olds on my first tee on Saturday at 2:00.
Yeah.
When I have to pay for a mower that costs $130,000 that's got to be replaced in 2 seasons, right? Mm-hmm. It's a conundrum. It's a conundrum.
Yeah.
So we can talk all we want about growing junior golf, but the challenge is getting access to the tee. And so no matter, just doesn't matter where you're doing it. Put snag in schools, get into park golf, support local programs, participate and take kid to the course week. Make sure your membership and your customers understand that when you take the golf course away for junior golf for 3 hours on a Thursday night, it is survival of that club's future 30 years from now.
Yeah.
And to stop complaining and go sit on the patio and have a glass of wine. So we have to make these hard choices. We have to fight for the future of the game, in my humble opinion, because it's going to be, this is creating an attention span of 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And golf is the exact opposite of that, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why golf is the fantastic antidote to what is happening to society. So golf is not going to go away. Golf is a perfect option to being consumed by gaming and warfare and Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But we have to make the time to participate and get involved.
Love it. Well, listen, we're at the top of the hour, just past. This has been fun. Any sort of parting words or thoughts to wrap things up today?
No, other than have fun. We are not in the rocket science saving lives business. We have people have a lot of stresses in the world. People come to your facility, no matter what type it is, to get away from all the other things that they can't get away from. And if we're not having fun, if we're not creating an enjoyable, fun, welcoming, non-stress environment, then what are we doing? So we have to put all the work and all the emails and all the stress and all the board meetings and committee meetings and all the stuff that makes it really difficult to have fun. We got to manage that somehow so that we can have fun, because if we're leaders, if we're managers, that just becomes infectious. Like how we can't expect our people to have fun and treat people wonderfully if we're walking around yelling all day with a look on our face like we're going to shoot ourselves, right? Yeah, no doubt, and we're stressed out. So we can't be stressed. So have fun, enjoy this wonderful business, and welcome. As we say to all of our gig members, as always, we got some exciting things coming up for the rest of the next few months with content, with podcasts, with courses. We've got an exciting platform with Toolbox. We really appreciate everyone's support and participation. And as always, we'll see you on the inside.
Thanks, James. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.